nice to be in Green Bay, even though I got to say it does feel like, as a Bears fan, this is hostile territory. But I do have to admit, I'm not going on the Lambeau tour, but I can say that the one time that I did make it up to a Packers game, it was one of the most phenomenal football and sports experiences of my life. So, you know, you got to give credit where credit is due sometimes. So even though it hurts to say that, go Bears. So it's my great pleasure to address the plenary session this morning, and thank you for that opportunity to Brian and Jean and Bernardo. I want to take the time I have this morning, though, to maybe start things off on a slightly different note than maybe would otherwise be expected. I'm not going to stand up here and talk about roundabouts because, quite frankly, the 350 people in this room know more about roundabouts than I do, and I'd rather hear from all of you as this conference moves forward. But what I would like to do is talk about what has happened, what has transpired in the 3 years since we last got together in Seattle. In 2014 in Seattle, we were at a point federally and nationally where a couple things that are notable were happening. The first is MAP 21 had just recently been signed by the President into law, and that legislation greatly changed the nature of the federal aid program. And for the first time going forward, we started to look at delivering the federal aid program as an outcome-based program as opposed to an output-based program. And what I mean by that is Congress and Federal Highways and USDOT defined what they wanted from the federal aid program was to be performance-oriented. And they instituted this transportation performance management framework that we will be partnering with the states from now on to deliver on managing our system. The other is the Everyday Counts Innovation Initiative. And in 2014, we were in the midst of EDC 2, focusing on one initiative that included innovative intersections. And in that family of innovative intersections were roundabouts. Now that 2-year campaign was very successful. We had states who participated in that campaign exceed their goals for delivering innovative intersections. Many dozens of states were focused on roundabouts. And so we had a lot of states who delivered their first roundabouts, or their first mini roundabout, or their first roundabout interchange. So there were a lot of firsts that were associated with Everyday Counts. And the success of those Everyday Counts innovation campaigns have made that program very popular. And now we're in the Everyday Counts 4 initiative. We've got 2 safety technologies, data-driven safety analysis, and safe transportation for every pedestrian. So very successful model. So those things were both happening back in 2014. What does that mean to where we're at today? Well, let me just walk you through what has happened with the TPM, with the Transportation Performance Management Framework. When MAP 21 was signed into law, all that did was start the process moving forward. So there was a considerable amount of work that had to take place to go through rulemaking, to go through consultation with the public, with the states, with AASHTO, with everyone. And that obviously takes time. But the good news was that safety was the first one out of the gate. Okay, so we had a good head start on safety, but we were looking at what is Congress defining transportation performance management to mean. So it's a strategic approach that starts to manage the system based on robust data collection, goal setting, and tracking. All right, so what we're trying to do is match our investments with what we want to get out of our system. And safety, of course, is a pretty obvious one. Now, there are 6 components to the TPM framework. There's setting national goals, there's setting measures for attaining those goals, targets that are reviewed annually, plans where you actually report on whether you attained your goals, reports that provide accountability and transparency, and then ultimately that gets fed back into the public domain where everyone can see how are we doing. The national goals that Congress laid out for us, these are really important things. And what I want all of you to do is, we're here to talk a lot about roundabouts. But what I would challenge all of you to do is look at these national goals and consider to what extent can roundabouts help us achieve these goals. Okay? The first one, safety, I think is probably the one that's the most obvious to all of us. And certainly, I think Gene alluded to it, that this is what started the roundabouts movement in the United States, is the potential for roundabouts to save lives, to make a difference in reducing the toll that our highways take on our people. But then these other national goals are also very relevant to roundabouts. Infrastructure congestion reduction, system reliability, freight movement and economic vitality, environmental sustainability, and reduced project delivery delays. So again, be thinking about, as you go forward, how can roundabouts help us attain these national goals? Specifically for the safety performance management, I mentioned that was the first one out the gate, the first one that successfully went through the rulemaking process. And actually, as we speak today, states are going through the process of setting their goals for safety for the first time following this framework. So this upcoming year is going to be a very eye-opening one to see, okay, how far do we really think we can go? How are we going to set these targets? How are we going to have this conversation with the public, with our stakeholders, with our constituents? Now, the measures that we decided upon, again, through the rulemaking and comment process, there are 5 performance measures, all based on 5-year rolling averages. Number of fatalities, rate of fatalities per VMT, serious injuries per VMT, and the number of non-motorized fatalities and serious injuries. So this is how we are going to measure ourselves and measure our success in delivering safe transportation to our public. Now, as I mentioned, they're going through the process right now of setting their performance targets, the states. And this target setting process involves consultation with locals, consultation with MPOs. It is not meant to be done in a vacuum, okay? So states are looking at how can we set the goals, what is our most recent 5-year data look like, where are our trends, what are our challenges, how does economic development factor into this? So it's a fairly complex undertaking to set these goals. We should have the goals that are going to be set later this year, and then starting in 2018, we will start conducting the annual reviews of whether states have attained their goals. There's more that you can learn about how states are measured against their goals, what we call making significant progress. More into the weeds than I'd like to go into this morning, but one of the most important things about this goal setting that's taking place is that for the first time, we're seeing federal highways and NHTSA come together and align their safety plans and actually tie the goals together, as opposed to having one organization go one direction, one organization go the other. So the idea is to bring infrastructure, behavior, enforcement, and education all back together where they belong. So what's going to happen is we've got the highway safety plans, which are the state highway safety office's responsibility. That's the NHTSA side. That's where we have the enforcement grants, the behavior grants, and so on. That's where the goals will be set. On the Highway Safety Improvement Program annual reports, which is the reports that the states deliver to federal highways to talk about how their safety dollars were spent and to what degree those projects were successful, that's where we will get the reports on the metrics after the goals are set. So there will be a year in between when those reports are submitted, and those 2 reports will be very important components to determining whether states are making that progress. Those get submitted annually. The Strategic Highway Safety Plan, which every state has now as a result of Safety Lou, those get reviewed every 3 to 5 years, updated every 3 to 5 years, and those take the HSIP and HSP information and kind of marry them together and set the high-level strategic plans for going forward over a multi-year period of time. I mentioned the need to actually be transparent and accountable. We're going to be posting these plans on our website, so everyone will be able to see what states are setting as targets, how they're meeting those targets. We want to keep this conversation with the public going. You know, talking about delivering safer transportation solutions is a conversation that we don't ever want to see come to an end. where we want to constantly challenge ourselves to keep doing better, keep finding ways to deliver safer projects. And that's true of roundabouts too. You know, we've had considerable success with roundabouts in proving how much safer they can be. But there's still work to be done. And I think that what we're going to hear from all of you this week on the latest research and the latest experience in the field is going to give us more ideas on how to do that. So now to jump over to the other thing that was coming out of 2014, and that is the Everyday Counts Innovative Intersections campaign. Now, if you recall at the time, what we were talking about was looking at innovative designs that kind of take a new approach to choreographing the movement of people and vehicles through intersections. Roundabouts, again, were one of the key intersection types. We also focused on diverging diamond interchanges, displaced left turns, median U-turns, and restricted crossing U-turns. So the whole, this whole family of ready for prime time and innovative designs that eliminated or modified conflict points and provided safer solutions. But even while EDC was focused on getting states and local agencies to build more of these and learn from those experiences, we knew at that time that to really sustain the progress that we were making, we needed something more. We knew back then that what we really needed were policies, processes, and procedures that would be implemented in the state DOTs to really cement this approach to looking at innovative designs. Really what we were talking about back then was something that those of you who have practiced engineering here in Wisconsin have known for quite a number of years. What we needed elsewhere in the United States were intersection control evaluation policies. Now, Wisconsin's one of the first states to have ICE. Wisconsin and Minnesota led the way. So those of you who are from Wisconsin are probably thinking, well, that's not particularly innovative. Well, it is when you consider that only 2 out of 50 states had them when we were conducting the Everyday Counts campaign. So we knew that that was the key. That was how we were going to make innovative intersections truly a institutionalized practice in state DOTs. What ICE policies and procedures are basically a performance-based framework to utilize a consistent process and objective metrics to evaluate your intersection geometry and control choices. So we've got all these innovative intersections. We've got all the conventional intersections. The list has grown quite long. How do you go through an exercise time and time again and consider all these possibilities every time you're touching an intersection? That's the challenge. But that's what ICE provides, the process by which you do it very, very quickly and efficiently and consistently. So this is what we're promoting to the states. We're encouraging local agencies to adopt ICE practices. The performance criteria that we know from states who are using ICE, and also how ICE can become quite successful, is to look at the performance criteria from the Transportation Performance Management Framework. So safety, operations, freight, non-motorized, all the same performance metrics that we're using at the high level to deliver the federal aid program. Now we can use these at the intersection level as well. And this isn't limited to only the safety program. This isn't just the intersection that has the crash problem, okay? This is every time we touch an intersection, whether it's for economic development because you've got a new commercial subdivision, or because you've got the need to reconstruct a bridge and it's going to affect this nearby intersection. Anytime we go out and substantially change the nature of an intersection, ICE would give us the opportunity to really go back to these core metrics and say, are we making the situation better? Because we're going to need every time we touch an intersection to help us deliver on those national goals. And this is really the key, isn't it? One of the things that we've always struggled with the strategic highway safety plans is, how do you make the leap out of the safety program? How do you take what the strategic highway safety plan represents and make it a consideration in all of your projects? ICE is one way to do that for intersections. Now here's an example of a state's multi-year plan. Okay, this is all the money, all divided up in all the different program areas. Everything from bridge rehabilitation to major widening to reconstruction, intermodal and transit. So several $billions, and this could be any state. This is several $billion over 5-6 year period of time. And you see here that safety improvements are this tiny little sliver in this case. 56 million out of 8.6 billion. There's no way that we're going to really drive down fatalities and get to zero if we're only spending less than 1% of our money to meet that safety goal. What we need is all the rest of these program areas to be carrying their weight on helping us deliver the safety goals. And again, that's one way that through ICE, we can make the intersections live up to that reality. So, just to kind of close things out here this morning, in looking at what innovative intersections represent, safety, mobility, best value, and in looking at what the Transportation Performance Management Framework challenges all of us to do, I hope you'll see that there's a great deal of alignment between these two. I hope you'll see the innovative intersections and using an ICE process that provides a consistent and thoughtful way to look at where the innovative designs can make that difference. I hope you'll see that these two things are going together. They're complementary. And through the ICE process, we are going to help intersections deliver on the TPM challenges. So just a few things then as we go forward with this conference. What is the context for roundabouts? Everything I've just said might sound great. Okay, that's good, but tell me what it has to do with roundabouts. Here it is. Those metrics, those TPM metrics, the safety performance management, the congestion, the reliability, the freight, the non-motorized, all these things, we need to stay focused on those metrics as we look at what roundabouts can do to achieve those goals. So when we're talking about evaluating our projects, when we're talking about conducting new research, if you want to know what you should be looking at, what we should be measuring and reporting on, look at those metrics. And then a couple other things that are just constantly always right underneath the surface of everything we're doing lately. Connected vehicle and automated vehicles, autonomous vehicles. How do roundabouts factor into a future where the infrastructure and the vehicles are connected to a scenario where vehicles are driving themselves? Where do roundabouts fit into that? Very, very little research has been done to start to peel that away. I like to think that the answer is that roundabouts will continue to have a great deal of value. But we need the research to tell us the answer. And then looking at the latest and newest opportunities to bring roundabouts into the conversation. The Road to Zero Coalition, which is a coalition that's being led through the National Safety Council with funding from NHTSA, Federal Highways, and partners across the traffic and safety spectrum. This is an opportunity for us to bring roundabouts to the forefront of safety partners who typically don't have a whole lot to say about infrastructure. The safe systems approach, which is part of the Road to Zero conversation, but also something I expect you're going to hear more and more about in the United States. This is a version of Vision Zero that blossomed in Australia and New Zealand, that I think there's a great deal of potential for us to learn from and emulate here in the United States on intersections. And then finally, the last thing I want to mention is, as resources get constrained, as we have less and less money to do discretionary research, we need to be looking to partner more and more. And I'd like to see Federal Highways take a leadership role in putting together a pooled fund to allow us to leverage our funding and also have you participate with your voice and with your checkbook on what are the intersection safety questions of the day. They could be roundabouts. Still a lot of questions remain. We can't solve them alone, okay? We need to be working together. NCHRP has been great. We've been very successful in getting research through that program. But if we can pool together a little bit of money from enough states with what we can match in federal highways, we can do more. And so if you'd like to talk more about pooled fund scenarios, I encourage you to reach out to me while you're here this week. Dr. Wei Zhang from our Safety R&D group is here, and Wei would like to explore this as well. So just to put that on the table, just a shout out to the Road to Zero Coalition folks here. So there's a lot of people involved in this, everyone from ITE to AAA Foundation for Traffic Safety, AASHTO, And then for any additional information on anything that I've spoken about this morning, there will be a couple links in the final program that you can visit, or you can just Google Transportation Performance Management and you'll come up with the links to federal highways. So with that, I would like to again thank you for the opportunity this morning and look forward to a great conference.